The Spectre Video Hardware. Part 3. 1983. The SV-318 Computer. The Spectre Video SV-318 was often referred to as the Mk1. This was to distinguish it from a later Mark II revision. The SV-318 was a Zilog Z88-based home computer and was released in 1983. The SV-318 was known for its distinctive design, which included a chiclet keyboard and an unusual built-in joystick. The handle could be removed, allowed for it to function as a directional cursor pad.
Features and specifications.
The SV-318 computer ran the popular Zilog Z88 CPU, running at 3.6 MHz. Its memory was a healthy 16 kilobytes of user RAM. This was expandable later on, and also included 16 kilobytes of dedicated video RAM. The primary operating system it used was Microsoft Extended Basic, and was stored in its 32 kilobytes ROM. The graphics and sound were handled by the Texas Instruments TMS-9918 video display processor, offering a resolution of 256 by 192 pixels in 16 colors. The sound was generated by the General Instrument SV-318 sound chip. Storage for the SV-318 was supported by software and ROM cartridges, cassette tapes at 1200 baud, and later on optional 5 and a quarter-inch floppy disks. The SV-318 featured two standard 9-pin Atari-style joystick ports, along with proprietary power pack and socket. It also had a proprietary cassette recorder interface and an expansion port interface. The Mark I version used a proprietary D subconnector for composite video signal, and also an external RF modulator. It can also be identified by its bright red joystick, unlike the later Mark II that had changed to a gray joystick.
The SV-318 history and its impact.
The SV-318 was the first basic full computer in the Spectre video range. A significant aspect of the SV-318's history is its role as a precursor to the MSX standard. ASCII Corporation's president, Kazuhiko Nishi, also the Microsoft representative in Japan at that time, saw potential in the SV-318 and SV-328 design, and he proposed a universal standard for home computers using the same core hardware. Spectre Video agreed, and the resulting MSX standard mandated the common processor graphics and sound chips used in the SV-318. This was to ensure compatibility across different manufacturers and machines.
The coming to an end.
The SV-318 was considered to be in the games or educational category due to its chiclet-style keyboard and built-in joystick. In the beginning, the SV-318 was primarily marketed in Europe and Australia, while not seeing great success in the very competitive USA market. The machine was later replaced by a revised version, the SV-318 Mark II, which featured minor external color changes to the joystick and an internal motherboard revision. The SV-318, though, had very limited time in the sales market, as the SV-328 was launched not long after the initial SV-318 and boasted more RAM and better keyboard.
So guys, there you go. The first real computer Spectre Video made, as in a standalone that didn't need add-ons to work. That was the 318 Mk1 with the red joystick. They also made the Mark II, which had the grey joystick. The difference being is that the Mark II went towards the PLA version like the Mark II 328s did, where they got rid of a lot of TTL stuff and ended up going into large-scale integration for the chips. Cut down in costs, not so easy to fix if one dies, because they're not made anymore, and they've not been reverse engineered. Anyway, the grey ones are not as common. They didn't make as many of the Mark IIs because it came out the same time as the 328, and the 328 was more professional machine with the keyboard and also the extra RAM in that it had as well. The red joystick is the more preferred one than the grey, but there weren't as many greys made, but people preferred the red. The red one, I think, is because a lot of the red joysticks got lost, and therefore there's a lot of 318s with the pad but with no joystick to go in them. There is a file on Thingiverse that you can download to print your joysticks if you want. Also for keys and things like that may be missing. The key stems and things like that go internally. Those are available on Thingiverse as well. So have a look around and see if there's anything there you need. Also the power connector plugs, they're on Thingiverse as well, so you can download the files to print those. If there's anything you need, just have a look around and see what's there. But anyway, we will pop over, unbox this puppy and have a look at it. Alright, I'll just switch over now. Right, so here we have it. It's in the box. This is a Mark 1 with the red joystick, and as I said, the difference being the Mark 2 has the grey joystick. This is part of my collection. I've had a couple of these, and because I wasn't sort of overly impressed with the rubber keyboards in these, I went on and went to the 328s, and I got rid of my 318. But this one happened to come in the box with all the polys and everything. So I've decided for now to hang on to this one. So this one is now in my collection again. I will just unbox this and we'll have a look at it. As you can see, they are not a small box. But anyway, it's all in the original Spectra Video polystyrenes. So we'll open this up. And in the boxes when they came as the kit, there was the power supply. They had a 8-pin connector. They didn't have built-in RF on the Mark 1 and the Mark 1 318s and the early Mark 1 328s. They never had built-in RF. The later models did. When they did the board revision, then they put the RF module internally. It should have come originally with some cassettes in these two ports on the side. And sometimes when they were doing special bundles, these extra holes would have had a ROM cartridge or something in it at some stage. And most of the times it was something like Frantic Freddy. Just have a look, see what I've got. Something like that, which was Frantic Freddy, and they would have been in their containers in the sides. And they would have come. And the tapes, usually they came with a set of tapes in this box as well. But then the joysticks, these have been put into a plastic bag, and this is to stop the polystyrene, like they do, they burn into plastics. That's to stop it doing any damage to those. But these are two of the original red joysticks, which go into the centre hole of that. Those are in there. And this has had the plug changed on it. A lot of the stuff that came in, and as you see there's a bit of that polystyrene there. A lot of these when they came in to New Zealand, they were the European brand, which runs on our voltages over here, which is 220, 240 volt. But the plugs were wrong. So a lot of people got the plugs changed on them, and I think even when they released them here, they got them changed until the later ones when they came out with the Australian plug, which is the same as ours. Then they had the moulded plugs on the cables. And the very early ones you'll know too, because they have the metal power supply in the cases. And these power supplies you'll find are the same as what they put into the expanders. They use the same power supply as the computers did. So if you ever had an expander without a power supply, you could use your Spectra Video one internally in it to power it up. And this is on the 605s, not the 601s. They were the early ones for this. We'll be coming to those a little bit later. They were the earlier versions, and they had a big built-in power supply with the main board in them. But yeah, the 328s, the 318s, the 605 expanders, or super expanders as they were called, used the same power supplies. The later model ones from these went to a plastic style, I think it was, and were slightly different. You may have seen them on my channel before when I was doing a couple of 328 repairs. So that's how they came in the box, and all polystyrened in. Usually the manuals all went down here. Now I do have manuals for these in another box put away, and your blocks of tapes would go on either side, and it was pretty much a generic set that you got, which was learning about basic, home economist. I think it was also Tank Battle and a couple of the others that were in there as well. But that was the standard on the 318, and on the back, as I said, you had to use the DIN connector to give you the AV out off of this. They were switchable for the channel as well. I think it was between 3 and 4. Expansion port. This goes to the expander. Now these can run the 601, which is what they were made for, or the 605s can plug into these as well. With the 605s, you just have to make sure you've got the 16 or the 64K upgrade RAM in them to take this into basically a 328 with the expander. So that's how you upgraded the memory on these. You could get the little 602 modules that plug into here, which was called a mini expander, and then you could just plug one module into it, but they were limited on what you could run. This other connector here was for the proprietary tape, and there is a modern Castrino type connector to go in here, so you can run tapes from flash memory or from SD cards. And as you saw on the other one, the standard joysticks, the standard joysticks on the side, and the switch and the power connector. And as I was saying, that power connector there is 9 and 16 volts, I think it is. So if you don't have a power pack for this, keep an eye out on one of my videos. I'm actually making a modern replacement power supply for one of these. The problem being is that you can't get a lot of the stuff these were running, and in today's world it's a lot more expensive than what it was back then. But if you want to do it and have it period correct, I'm going down that track. I'm going to 3D print one of these and make the cable up for it, and on all the rest of it. So keep an eye out for that one when that comes out. So we will take the computer out, we will move the box off, and we will open up the computer. Right, so here we have the 318 Mk1, and as I say, they were very nice looking keyboard, but I don't like these rubber keyboards. They're better than some, I suppose, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of them, and I actually like my clicky keys, you know, with normal key switch. But the nice touch was the separate joystick they had built in, and when you plug a joystick into port 1, it actually turns that off. But that is also used for like the arrow keys on the other keyboards on the Mark II 8s, and that works very similar. The Mark II 318s had the same set out as this. As I said, the only real difference was the grey joystick, and internally, as we will see with this one, some of the stuff was replaced with large scale integration. So I will get a screwdriver and we will take this apart. Right, so we've taken these apart, as with all the Spectra videos, and in the manuals it tells you as well. There's 3 across here and 3 across the back that need to be undone, and then this will lift out. There looks like there's one here, but there's not. That's just a post, I think, for taking the strain relief for where the cartridge slot is, so that you don't end up putting too much on it and breaking the top cover. Now, if I remember, I think those are longs, so I'll have to get a normal medium length screwdriver into those. And that's it with some of this gear. You do find that these are nice screwdriver sets, but because they have that shroud for the piece to clip into, you can't get them down inside the screw holes. So you do need to make sure that you do get screwdrivers. So the smaller, the size 1s, the size 2s, even the size halves, if you can get them, and the medium shaft, and then get them in a longer shaft. And then I've got one that's about that long too, which I got in a size 2, because there are some monitors when you take them apart, they are very, very deep inside, and even this one wouldn't reach them. So just something to keep mindful of if you're into repairing this sort of gear. That stuff you do need to have around. It's just something to put all my screws into. Now I'll just block those 2 holes. Let them get one out. One came out, the other 2 don't want to. Might need a little bit more undoing. The other way is to get a magnetic screwdriver. There are pluses and minuses to doing that. Some things do not like magnetic fields around them, so just be wary of that. Right, so those screws are out. Now these had a really, really big flaw with them when they were built, and that the ribbon cable that went from the keyboard to the motherboard was soldered in. If you look back on some of my repair videos, you see I go through and actually put a... I might have a screw in it. I did a repair video on a few 328s, and I did a cable mod where I took the horrible cable they use and replaced it with a ribbon cable I made with DuPont connectors. So have a look through my other videos and have a look at that. We'll probably see some when I get to the 328s with some of the ones when I open them up where I've actually done them. So what we'll do now is those screws are in there, so I won't lose them. And I'll spin this around so you can see what I'm talking about. So if you have a look, when you lift these up, you've got to go from the back to the front. And then that's that cable, this one here. And this is soldered to the board, and it's soldered to this board. So yeah, it's a pain. So what I do with these is I generally will cut these, they're hot glued on this side. I solder a ribbon cable to here, and I put a right angled, 90-degree right angled header, single row header connector across here, and then I make the cable up so it'll plug in onto here out of the way, and then if I need to work on it, I can unplug it, take it off, and work on this without having that attached. Because if you're going to do work on the board with this as it is at the moment, you have to do it with all this attached to it, unless you want to undo all the screws and take the keyboard off of the plastics and the membrane, but it's still connected to the motherboard. And I thought, what a crazy idea. Why didn't they make something a bit better? But hey, that was back in the day, and I don't think they were expecting people to open these up to do work on them. But if things break, you still got to open them. So anyway, we'll take this as the RF shield. So we'll take this off. And I must say, this is quite a tidy inside, one inside. It's got a little bit of marring around it from its age, and that's just because of the plating on it to stop it from rusting. But it's not bad. It's not bad. Let's undo these ones. So this should be just another couple. There's that one there. It doesn't want to come out. It's dark. Let's see if we can get that out. There we go. One, and I think there's one down there. No, it's not. Yeah, and this is the thing you'll be careful of, because you could tear this out of the board, having to move the whole thing around, and that's what I don't like about them. And generally, that's why I will turn around and do the mod on them. It's a little bit of time and a little bit of mucking around, but makes them a lot easier if you want to work with them. Right. Well, that should just come off and out from memory. Let's try and remember with these. That one's up, that one's up. Oh, is there another one over? You just got to be careful, they are quite sharp on the edges where it's been cut and bent in the press when they're done. And with the, I'll show you, on here, as you can see, there's actually a tab on here. This is an aluminium heatsink tab that goes over the video processor, and I'll show you that in a minute. The later ones, they did away with this, and there was just a block that was mounted onto the video chip rather than doing it this way. If you undo that screw, it keeps it on the chip, but these over time, that's quite dry, so what that needs is to clean up, some new paste put on it, and it will live a little longer. Because these do get quite hot, these video chips get quite hot. So what I'll do is I will move these screws. So as you can see down here, this is the video. I'll just get something you can see. Grab the yellow pen. So down here, this is the video processor here. The CPU's over here. Then you got your I/O logic there, the sound chip, and your RAM, and your logics are there, and then there's some more buffering in there up here, and the ROMs, the two ROMs, and the cartridge slot. And this is where all your AC voltage comes in over the back, and it gets filtered out, and it goes through the two rectifiers, so you get your plus and minus voltages. Now these were the same sort of issue as a lot of the very early machines back in their day, that they were using the 4116s for their RAM, and the problem being with that is that they needed the triple voltages to use the RAM, and two of them were used as like a reference, and the 5 volts normal was used to run the RAM. The later model ones, when they did away with this and they went to the 4164s, they did away with the triple voltage and only ran 5 volts. It ran a lot colder, and you didn't have problems, whereas if your minus voltage fell over or your 12 volts dropped out, if one of the reference voltages went off here, it would kill the chip. So that was the issue. The nice thing they did with these is the processor and the ROMs were socketed, but nothing else was. Some people, what they will do, if there's a video issue, I would say pull these and put some 4164s in it. You do not need the triple voltage for them, because they only run on the 5 volts. Pin for pin, they're almost identical. All you have to do is actually lift up one pin, take it across and solder it on the other side, and clip a front pin off. That's it. Then put sockets in and you just drop them straight in there and they work fine. I did this, if you look at one of my repair videos, on a Spectrum, and that was running the 4116s in it. It was having issues, and I didn't have any 4116s, but I have 4164s, because a lot of my gear I do have 64K in it. So I just did the mod on those, put sockets in, dropped them in, and it worked fine. And in that video, if you follow that 3-4 part one through, you'll see that going through it, the different ways I looked at doing the mod and what I ended up doing, but how it fixed the problem as I went along and found out how many chips were bad. In the end, I just replaced the whole lot, because I couldn't say one of those was going to fall over again. So I thought, no, do the whole thing, go from there. So that's what I did. So I will do later on, I will take this hot glue off, it's terrible, and I will put some thermal paste on here, and because that shield goes on there and holds down to it, that's going to be fine. It doesn't need to be glued on there. I don't know what the idea of that was, but maybe it was they put that on here and glued it on to keep it there when they put the heat shield on to stop it moving around. Who knows? But the other thing I'll do is I'll go through and I'll just check these regulators are okay and there's not an issue. This is better. If there's an issue with this, And this was the nice thing about the 318 Mk1 and the 328 Mk1, the very, very early ones. All this is basic logic, and you can still get it. You can still buy this stuff. You can get new old stock or repurposed old stock out of boards, stuff that was socketed, and you can get the sound chips. You can actually get a modern, I think it's a Pico. They make these with a Pico now. These are a dime a dozen, and there's plenty of them around. The ROMs you can replace with more modern versions. The Z80 are still available. They've stopped producing them now, but even though this is a 3.5 megahertz or 3 megahertz chip, you can drop an 8 in here or a 10 in here. These things, the Z80 is a nice thing with these. You could run them at under 1 megahertz if you wanted to. You could drop a 10 megahertz chip in it and run it at 1 megahertz or less. Why? I don't know. But that was a nice thing with them. They're not clock dependent chips. They don't have to have a specific clock to run at that specific speed. And that's why in a lot of early machines in the day, people made frequency doublers and that for these to run them at 7 megahertz and things like that, because they just swapped the chip out and put an 8 megahertz chip in it or a 10 megahertz chip in it and ran at that speed, and then switched the slower when the software wouldn't work with it. The only RAM that's generally okay is the ones up the top here for the video, because these are generally 4 by 16s, I think they are. I think they're 4-bit by 16s. Most of these were running the 9918, 9928s. I think the 28s came at a later date. They're a better chip with a better output on it, and you'll find that on the 328s they have a composite out on them with the built-in RF, and that was because the chips could support having a basic DAC put in them and combiner to run a composite outer signal on them. And with the 9928s, 29s for the NTSC, I think it was, and the 38s, 58s, they could actually run RGB. They had a lot of extra ports on them. They were actually a very advanced chip for their day, and they could do a lot of things that were never pushed on this. But they had like video in, then screen over screen, so you could do titling over top of things and all that. These chips were very capable chips, especially on the later version ones. And as you see, when we get into the 328 and the 728 and the 738 and that sort of thing, how the chips went up and things got better and better as you went along. As with a lot of these earlier machines, you had to have the expander with the add-in cards to give you things like 80 column and all the rest of it, and RS-232 and disk drives and stuff like that. You needed the expander to put those cards in across the port. So this is the insides of it, guys. So as I said, I would show you, and these are fairly easy to get out. It's generally just a couple of screws. You generally have to undo the screws to take this shroud off, and this is just where the cartridge goes in. Voltage regulator down there, that's the big filtering cap. And those are another couple of big filtering caps. One will be for the 5 volts, one will probably be for the 12 volts, and I think that one, because it's not on the heatsink at the back here, that will be our -5. So that's why it's not stuck on a heatsink. Because if you put the tab of the minus onto this tab here, you'll blow it up, or blow one of the others up. So yeah, that's not a good idea. But with the positive ones, because the shroud and the tab are ground, they can be grounded together, so they're quite happy because it's the same return ground. The big chip here, I think it's a TO4 package, that's your 5 volt plus. It's a bigger, heavier IC than the standard TO220s packages that are here, and these sort of run at about 1 amp or just over 1 amp. These will run up to I think about 2, just over 2. Not that you need it here, but once you start plugging things into the back and a tape deck, because the tape deck pulls its power out of here as well, so the tape deck pulls its own power from the main machine. you need the extra power for running the motors and things, because of the draw up current and stuff like that. So that's the basics of the inside of one of these, and the basic layout to what is inside one of these, if you've not ever seen one before. So I will turn this around so you can try and get a bit better look at the insides of it. And as you can see, if I do that, on the back of the keyboard over here, this is the joystick port. This is the back of the joystick port. It has a little piece that sits down for the stick to go into, and then it's just a contact as you go around. It's just a contact that goes around and pushes on the buttons. I don't want to pull this one apart because of this cable, so until I get round to doing something with it with this cable, I really don't want to pull this apart internally. It still has the metal back shield on it too. A nice quality board. This is all gold plated, which was quite good for back in the time, and it looks like a reasonably good quality board as well. This one is one of the, what they term as paper boards, I think it was, and that it's not really a fiberglass, and the boards, you can't put a lot of heat into them or they start disintegrating and not so much going up in flames, but it breaks down. So yeah, they're not very good. They're not as bad as some. The dark browny coloured ones were worse than these, so they're ones that you've really got to watch out for. But anyway guys, so there you go. That's a look at the inside of the Spectra Video 318 Mark 1. I'm sorry I don't have a Mark 2 to show you. When I do get one, I will do an in-between video between this and the 328 Mark 1 with it, so you can actually see the difference internally in them. But at this stage, I don't have one to show you. Alright, I will do, if I can, I will dig up some pictures for you and put some pictures up online so you can see the differences between this board and the Mark II board. Okay, so guys, that's the 318 Mark 1. They were a nice little machine and very well spec'd for their day. They were quite ahead of the time, especially with some of the other machines that were out. They were a bit expensive in their first release, but as they went along, they did come cheaper and cheaper, and were a very good machine. Very good basic on them as well. And the expandability was a lot better than some machines. As soon as you got an expander, the cards for a 601 were the same cards that can go into a 605. So they were compatible. So if you wanted to upgrade later on from a 601 to a 605, you could take your cards out and put them into it. So it was really nice. We'll see more on those as time goes on when they come into the spotlight, and we get to have a look at those as well, internally and externally. So hopefully you're enjoying this tutorial on the Spectra videos and their hardware and what they made. It may get a little mixed up along the line further down the track, because I think some of them were done in quite a lot in the 1 year, and may get a little bit mucked around, but I'll try and keep it in chronological order for you. If not, I'll try to keep it in model specific order for you. So guys, there we go. More stuff to come, more machines to come. So guys, that's where we're up to, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.